Hello, I'm Schuh and this is Procurement in the Park. So one of the worst scenarios in the purchasing chessboard is to be dealing with a patent protected supplier. So you would have super low demand power and the patent protected supplier would have very high supply power. But fear not, with A8, Invention on Demand, there is a very strong solution for such a situation. So let's first consider what a patent is. So many people believe the patent is a watertight protection of a supplier against any competitive action or any action from a customer. But this is not true. A patent is more like a Swiss cheese. So there are lots and lots of holes in it. And if you can read the patent of the supplier, the patent holds the information in it how to circumvent the patent in a perfectly legal way. And the guy who invented this way of thinking, the way of reading a patent this way, was a Soviet engineer named Heinrich Altschuler. And he invented an approach, a methodology called TRIZ. And TRIZ is a Russian acronym. And the English translation would be the theory of inventive problem solving. So in the 1950s, Heinrich Altschuler was a patent engineer somehow affiliated to the Red Army. And he was filing patents. And then by doing so, he was then asking himself a question. Is the process of inventing something completely random, something driven by chance, where you need some kind of divine inspiration and this happens like once or twice in a lifetime? Or is this a highly systematic approach that can be understood, researched and taught to people to make it repetitive? And in order to get there, he and his team analyzed 200,000 international patents. And then by analyzing the patents, he found that there are certain logic steps, so that there's a certain kind of almost like algorithm, a pattern in all of these patents. So the first one was that the patents typically were solving a contradiction. So you want, for example, you want to make something more powerful. If you make it more powerful, it gets heavier. And as it gets heavier, it needs more power. The second finding was that all of the patents followed some kind of similar logic. And the third finding was that typically the solution in the patent, the inspiration for the patent, did not come from the direct engineering or scientific discipline, but it came from outside. And the way to apply Heinrich Altschuler's thinking to patents is the following. We start with the specific engineering problem. So the specific engineering problem you and your company have. Then we translate the specific engineering problem into a generic scientific problem. So we take it from the language of engineering and bring it up to the language of science. And then with the help of TRIZ, we look for a generic scientific solution and then translate this generic scientific scientific back to a specific engineering solution. And this translation step from the generic scientific version to the generic scientific solution, we do this by applying the 40 inventive principles. And the 40 inventive principles are in the core of TRIZ. So here you see the list, and let's now take one of them, the principle, if you have lemons, make lemonade. So translated into engineering and science, this means if in my engineering system, if I have one effect that is negative, and I cannot really engineer this negative effect out of the system, is there a way to go the opposite direction, so to exaggerate the negative effect and then observe, does the negative effect bring something positive? So does the negative effect help us to solve the problem? And by working with Russian TRIZ scientists, I heard a fascinating example about, and that was about this, and this was torpedoes. So normally the speed of a torpedo is limited by cavitation, so nothing can travel in water above a speed of about 80 kilometers per hour, because if it go faster, there will be bubbles in the water, so steam bubbles, and the steam bubbles will hold back the traveling object, and when the steam bubbles collapse, there's a peak of pressure on the surface of the moving object, and this pressure peak can be so high that it actually rips out pieces of the metal. So if you look at the screw of a ship, you will see tiny little holes in there, and these are caused by cavitation. Now the TRIZ principle, if you have lemons make lemonade, translated to the torpedo would be to say, okay, instead of having many small bubbles, can we have one gigantic bubble? So can we envelope the torpedo in a bubble, in one gigantic bubble, so the torpedo hardly touches the water? And this is the principle of a cavitation torpedo, and the cavitation torpedo, if I remember correctly, can travel with 400 kilometers per hour as opposed to 80 kilometers per hour of a regular torpedo. And as you see in the list, so there are many other principles, so 40 in total. And we have applied this many times for mechanical engineering problems, for electrical engineering problems, or even in the software field for dealing with patent protected suppliers. And we have always found many ways of circumventing the patent and finding solutions that can be patented, that typically are better than the current solution by the supplier, and that can be implemented. So now when you have this solution, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go and start do all the detailed engineering and start manufacturing the solution. This can still be dealt with at the level of procurement. So you sit down with the supplier and say, hey, so in the past you were not playing game with us, so you forced us to go down the route of A8, Invention on Demand. And here is now a list of many solutions, alternative solutions, patents that we have. And now it's up to you, dear monopolistic supplier. Do you want us really to invest money in order to build a competition to you, or should we go to other suppliers and hand them over all these patents and develop a solution against you? Or are you now willing to play game with us? Are you willing to treat us in a fair and collaborative way? And again, we have done this many times, and this approach has worked wonders. So you would see a patent protected supplier kind of completely reverse course and become super collaborative with the customer. So this is one of the more powerful methods in the purchasing chessboard, A8. Let me know if you are dealing with patent protected suppliers. Let me know what you think about this approach, A8, Invention on Demand, powered by TRIZ. Let me know down below, and as usual I will get back to you within 24 hours. If you would like to subscribe, click here, and if you would like to watch another one of my videos, click over here. Bye!